Hi guys, welcome to the Young Money Speaker Series brought to you by Kaitzak. In this exciting series, we'll dive into the fascinating journey of young, successful entrepreneurs in order to gain their valuable insights. We'll uncover their early beginnings, pivotal moments in their careers, as well as how they made their transitions into entrepreneurship. We'll hear about the lessons learned along the journey, the way they made their leap into entrepreneurship, as well as any secrets they might hold about their specific industry or profession. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur or a seasoned professional, there's something here for you to learn. So join us for Young Money, where we celebrate the achievements of young business minds. If you know someone or are someone that's young and making it in business, please send us a pitch to hello@kaitzak.com.au because we'd love to hear your story. Enjoy the episode. Okay, so how'd you get started? How did you decide you wanted to run your own business, and what was sort of the process that you went through to get everything set up?
How I got started in construction or how I got started in starting my own business?
Both, I think, and how they
Both.
relate to each other. Yeah.
Good question. So originally, I always knew I wanted to be in the building game. It was from a young age. I always knew I had, call it a passion, or I enjoyed working with my hands or building things. I really enjoyed seeing something built out of nothing. That was probably one of the early, I guess, memories. Even when I started off as a carpenter, I started late. I was 21. When I started my apprenticeship, I was 21. When I started carpentry, I was 20.
Right.
So even from back then, looking at a pack of timber that would get delivered, and then you look in the afternoon or at the end of the day and you look at what you've done, it's like taking the shape of a house. So that was always like felt like I was doing something as opposed to, I don't know, maybe working on a computer. Or it's not controversial, but it's like I took enjoyment in knowing that the hands or the work of my hands were building something. So
Yeah.
that was from an early age. I knew. Coming to how I got into building, even back at 20, to be honest, the plan wasn't to do carpentry. The plan was to get straight into uni, start my construction management course. But the person I was working for at the time, like I said, when I was 20, said, do this as a backup and do it as something to always fall back on,
Right.
which was the push to get me into carpentry prior to just moving straight into construction management.
Yeah.
So I took his words on. I started my apprenticeship at 21, finished at 24, or like by the end of 24. Then jumped at the age of 25. I jumped into uni. So then I did go on to do construction management.
Yep.
Uni, construction management, construction economics. That then transitioned me into a builder's role. I actually had someone call me, said, I heard you're doing uni at the moment. He goes, do you want like a position as a site supervisor? Took that on at 25, moved the next year when I was 26, found someone else called me and asked me to work for them. I guess having the carpentry background was a big bonus. So in
Right.
hindsight, it was probably one of the best decisions I made, because I got a thorough understanding of construction and how the processes are, what's required first, and even just how to calculate the build.
Well, yeah. So that's pretty interesting because I'm an architect, but I did work for construction companies for a little bit, and I do have young people who come up to me and they go, I'm thinking of studying construction management. I'm thinking of doing X, Y, Z. What's sort of the best way to get forward? And basically, what you're saying is, like, I always assumed, you should do a trade, you should do carpentry, because the construction management course, sort of on its own, I don't feel like it's actually that valuable. And I've worked with people on site who don't have any construction experience but have done construction management, and they don't actually understand how to operate a site effectively, but they think they're the boss. But I think that can be pretty
in the
annoying.
same regard. I know people that did the opposite. So they've not done the construction management course, but they spent their time, even as a contracts admin, estimator, a quantity surveyor, whatever it was, spent their time on site. So at a site office. So every day they'd walk out of the office and the project is right in front of them to see. So it's one of those things where they related what they were doing on the computer, and they could visually see what was happening on site.
Yeah.
And they've then gone on to work for larger companies where these people did go to uni, but in no way, shape, or form did they have the experience that she had, because she understood both sides. When she was doing something on the computer, she could relate that to the job site, where I guess if you're just looking at pictures and numbers, it's not the same.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
It's very similar with, like I said, with the carpentry background. So it was a lot of information to take in at the time. And again, I researched a lot on my own, though, because I started at 21. I always felt like I was behind the people, say my age, that, for example, started when they were 18 or 16, like dropping out at year 10 to start a trade. So I always thought I had a catch-up period. I needed to catch up to be at the level. So even as like a short-term goal, it was, okay, be as good as the people are at my age in carpentry or in building. So, but taking that to building, it was such an asset, because people, even though I was fresh in building, the knowledge was there from everything I learned over the 4 or 5 years of carpentry. So, and problem solving in construction is, it's very key and planning. So understanding the steps, factoring in, okay, if this person is to do this today, how will it affect the next trade? Even if that next trade is going to be 3 or 4 months from now, it's being conscious of, okay, I need to make this small adjustment today, because in 3 or 4 months' time, someone else needs to do something here where, they're going to need the space, or they're going to need, for example, support there for what they want to install. So it was a good lesson. But sorry, go on.
I think that I'm sort of relating it to my experience, where obviously, you'd say we're both in the construction industry, and at the core of it is you're building a thing. So if you're on a, like, I know a lot of architects, the way they learn is they go on a computer and they learn to draw the details. They don't actually understand like how waterproofing works or how a gutter works. It's just like, this is how it's drawn, and they see another drawing and they copy it, and then they send it to the builder, and the builder tells them it's wrong, and then they get pissed off at the builder, and they're like, what do you know? I'm the one who went to uni. I'm the smart one. Don't tell me my drawings are wrong. But I found, for me, even I did start working for a builder, and 6-7 years of being on site, architecture felt like the natural progression from being on site, not the other way around. Like, I reckon a lot of builders would be better architects than there are architects who go through the normal process, because they can actually design something. They're like, well, the brick should go here, the timber should go here, and then you're getting an actual design that works. So I've always found that really interesting. It's like, you got to understand the core of the industry, which is you're building a building. That's the thing that really matters.
We've discussed this before, where your architect and your builder actually working together on the design might possibly be the best option and most economical and like efficient way to get the design process done, because bringing both minds in, design and build, that's where you'll find like the maximum efficiency when it comes to building. But I completely agree. There's been plenty of discussions with architects about the way they've drawn something and how it will not work. Practically, it won't work. It's, or you turn to them and say, okay, you've designed it. Show us how you would like to do it. And there's no answer. But having both, like we said, the design and the construction knowledge behind them is definitely the best outcome. So
So I think that's sort of more and more on the cards today. So basically, a traditional architecture firm would, which I'm sure you've worked in this process. It's like they work on the design for months and months and months, and then when they're ready for tender, it goes to a builder, and the builder looks at it and is like, "What the hell is this? Like, how are we going to build this?" Whereas, what you're referring to is what I do as well, as a sort of fundamental part of my business, is making sure you're treating the builder like a consultant from the beginning of the process for buildability and for cost. I don't even know if buildability is a word, but like that's what you'd bring them on for. And then when you get to tender stage, as you're saying, you've got a design that actually works for everyone, not just the architect, not just the client. Which basically, the next thing I wanted to ask you about was, which is an interesting topic for me. Go.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I think moving forward, it's the right way to go about it. Like the method you're talking about. So it will save time. I know it might be a short-term expense, but long-term, it's probably the best way moving forward. And I think it's just, again, an architect leaving his ego behind and a builder leaving his ego behind and saying, okay, well, let's just work together to achieve the best outcome for the project.
It's a very millennial
outcome.
Yeah, which is good. I think it's a really positive way to work, and it's more fun, and you learn more. Like I learn way more doing it like this. I'm not pretending like I know everything. It's a complex process.
It's I mean, sometimes, I'm not saying architects can't, but the builder can often see the problem just off the drawing before they've even started constructing, where it's like, well, this is going to be where the problem is. And tweaking the design to suit accordingly is, best way to go early on before you start building. So
definitely. So just to get back on sort of the business track, the thing that's interesting for me is the transition period that people make between working for someone else and then starting their own business. Obviously, there's things like your support network, there's the city you live in. You're in Sydney. Sydney is a pretty competitive place. It's the engine room of Australia. It can be pretty intense. So if you could just say a few words about your transition, how you sort of managed that, any sort of problems you faced, any things that were actually easier than you thought, that sort of stuff.
Backtracking to the previous question though, so going out on my own was not always the plan. So how it came to be, which then kind of leads into making that transition. I think I was I just finished my second year of uni, and I was actually talking to one of my uncles who, prior to starting uni or even during the first 2 years, it was always, I'll go work for whatever company it was, some big firm or like some T1, T2 company. Then I was visiting my uncle in America and we were talking, and then he was the one that was kind of like, give it a go. Today you're charging this much, tomorrow you'll charge that much as you build reputation. And that's where the wheels started turning a little bit, where, again, the plan was not to work for myself at the beginning. It was always, I'll go work for someone else. But it was one of those, without realizing that conversation is what I was working towards without realizing I was working towards. So
Right.
I
Right.
was putting all the pieces into place where if the opportunity came, I could go out on my own and I'd be fully equipped, and I've got all the licenses, all the insurances, all the equipment, tools. So yeah, going out on my own. So I finished uni at 28. I was 28 years old. So finished uni in November. Come January, I was out on my own. So believe it or not, I finished uni and quit my job in the same week. My last week of uni was also my last week of work with my previous employer,
Right.
which was good, and I learned a lot. They were Armenian too, so I learned a lot from him. It I wouldn't say it was easy. It was a lot of work, trying to find work, chase work. So I spent December of 2018 quoting job after job, finding work, using all these like resources, high pages and one flare and all of them to just get my like first project started. So that came about literally January 2nd or January 3rd of 2019. So
Right.
I was fortunate to pick up a job in December, and then from there it became word of mouth, a little bit through some of the subbies or the tradies that I'd used, where they also knew that I was out on my own now. So they were putting the word out, which helped. But again, it was constant. I'd say the first year and a bit was just always trying to find work. It wasn't easy. It doesn't always just come to you. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
It
Right.
never, it never just falls at your feet. I mean, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So, it, I guess, transition wise, I realized there was also a lot that I didn't know. So, as
Yeah.
much as I thought I knew, coming from, okay, on the construction site, I know, but running a business, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
a lot of mistakes, you take a lot of losses at the beginning. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
And again, it's now we're in our fifth, going into the sixth year, and you're still learning. Believe me, till today, I'm still learning, and I'm adjusting, because even though I was working for someone else, they didn't show me the background stuff. I was always on site.
Yeah. 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 So it sounds like
So
there's the two, you've got the skill of whatever it is, you're being a builder, a carpenter,
yeah,
there's a whole lot of skill that comes with that. And then there's the complete other side, which is the business side, which is a whole other skill set. And it's like, you don't, just because you're a good builder doesn't necessarily mean you can run a good business. Is that sort of what
definitely.
you're getting at?
Definitely. And vice versa. If you also are only good at the end of the day, so I'm in charge, I'm at the top of it. So you need to be well acquainted with both sides. So I need to know about the building side, but as well, if I want to run a successful business, I need to know about managing a business, managing finances, managing a team, quality assurance, all of that. So it's also, I think, in our field or construction anyway, or as a builder, I should say, it's no good knowing how to do the background stuff where it's, the paperwork, winning jobs, quoting jobs, but then not being on site to see the quality of the work that's being done and ensuring that everything's being done right. So it's both. You can't just have one. I mean, look, I'd love to be in a position where I said, oh, we've grown so much in 5 years where we have a team to take care of every department, but it's not the case. The reality is you're the accountant, you're the site supervisor, you're the HR, the receptionist, everything. So
Yeah.
there's, yeah. it was a big wake up call. Just thinking, oh, all I have to do is build, but to go about it in a professional manner, there's a lot to take in at once, or maybe
Yeah.
not even at once. It is a gradual thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Because it seems like basically, there's a bit of a balance there where because for me it's basically I've got this thing in the back of my mind that's, oh damn, if I'm thinking 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, it's like there's no guarantee of income, and so that basically puts you in this mode of I need to find work, I need to get work.
Yeah.
But then that has to be balanced with, okay, how much work can I actually manage? How good are my people that they can actually take on how much work? So
Yep.
what's the sustainable growth rate there without me falling flat on my face, disappointing clients, not making a good quality product, whatever it is that comes from, taking on too much work and being too busy.
Yep.
But yeah, like I think in terms of transition stuff, that was a very key thing I noticed, which was it's a whole new way of seeing life. Like if you're working for someone else, that's one thing, and then if you're working for
Yep.
yourself, it's like life is completely different. The way you view everything is different, not just money and responsibility and your knowledge and all these things, but your lifestyle. How do you all of a sudden it's like when you're having a discussion with someone, what's the purpose of it? What's the impact of it on all these different things?
So I think something, and I can definitely see it in you and knowing you for as long as I have, but it's two things. So you go into it with a mentality of sink or swim, right? And I very much have a sink or swim with a lot of things I do. So I'll throw myself in the deep end, and I'm like, it's either going to work or it's not, and we'll give it a go. Like I'll take the gamble with it. But it's like what you're saying. So you're doing it, and then it's like, you need this. I need to make this work, right? And it's throwing everything at it. And when I mean everything, I mean a lot of my time was thrown at it when I first started. But I will say this, and again, even prior to going out on my own, I always treated even my previous employer's business as not as if it was mine, that I was running the show, but I made sure that the work being completed was to a high standard. So I didn't have the attitude of, oh, it's 3:30, I'm going, like I'm done. Mate, we used to do 7 to 7, 7 to 8 p.m. sometimes, and you'd stay back to make sure that the project was like running on time, make sure, okay, well, this person's coming tomorrow. I need to make sure these things are ready for him. So even working for someone else, I did have that sense of accountability of, okay, my name is to this product. Like yes, my boss's business, but the client or the owner of the property sees my face on site every day. So it's my name is on this product, unintentionally, I guess. So yeah, it's having that, I guess, what do you want to call it, characteristic of like, okay, yes, it's not my job, but I also can't, as in it belongs to my boss. It's not my problem, but it's not having that, oh, it's not my problem attitude. It's okay, do it well, do it right. So yeah, it's a combination of those two things. It's again realizing, yes, my name is to it, even when I wasn't working, and then coming out of it, I still have that same thing with my projects. It's okay, my name is to this project, or the clients will think of me. But at the same time, having that sink or swim attitude at the start of like, I need to make this work. There's no way. And it's, just throwing a lot of hours into it, trying to find work at the start. But
that reminds me of what we were talking about earlier, where essentially, you have to, for your job, right, you have to have built something. So at the end of the day, if there's nothing standing there, people will point to you and be like, this guy didn't do anything today. And it's like very black and white. Whereas I think in more corporate spheres, the motivation can be quite different, where it's actually the people who work the least that are benefiting the most. So people who don't focus on, let's say, whatever building the building is in a corporate environment, and they focus on politics and they focus on, getting ahead and expediting their career, they're the ones who actually get ahead. The people who are doing work become the poor saps that pick up all the load. And I think for me, basically in that setting, I was realizing that I was becoming bad at working the longer I worked for someone else. So I'd go into the office, I'm like, I have my coffee, I have my this, I have my that. Sorry, what, Len?
I was asking, what do you mean by that? So
yeah. So basically, when I first started working, I would work really, really hard. I'd go on site early, I'd leave site late, I'd make sure I was learning, I was asking questions, blah blah blah. But as time goes on and you get a bit seasoned and a bit worn, it turned into like, how can I find the shortcuts to get what I need to do done? Essentially like performative working to a degree as well, which it's on a spectrum. Some people are really performative, some people aren't. But when I started working for myself and I sat down at my desk and I was like, okay, I've got 15 hours of work to do today. After 10 minutes, I'm like, man, I need to go get a coffee. Like I couldn't even sit down for an hour. So I had to like relearn how to work because I'd forgotten how to working for someone else. And that, I think that's specific to corporate. Whereas if you're a builder, as I was saying before, it's like, if you haven't done the building, then you haven't done the building. There's like no way of getting around that. Like you can't pretend,
Proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's no avoiding it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you say. So even saying, learning how to sit down. So I love being on site. I hate sitting behind my computer. Funny enough. So same thing. So it reminds me of uni. So keep in mind, okay, I went to school. Maybe I wasn't the best student at school. Come out of school, start my trade. Then after not sitting in front of a computer for so long, now I'm sitting in front of a computer doing assessments. And it was just trying to concentrate. But like you said, needing a break. But I notice I do it now. I'm quoting a job and it feels like I'm doing a uni assessment.
Right.
Like, and it's no different. Like and it's teaching myself, okay, well, you need to get this done if you want to win this project. So the incentive is high at the end. But it's exactly like you said, realizing, okay, well, I need to change the way I do things. There's no time to like just sit on my phone, and it's like getting it done. And keep in mind, for us as well, a lot of the computer work is after our work. It's not your, say, 7 to 4 that we usually do, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. But it's finishing work. So you're physically working on site or you're managing.
Yeah.
And then you come home at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then you're sitting down again and you're working till 10 o'clock. So I guess having that drive to want, okay, well, if I don't do this, I don't win the next project. If I don't get this done, so it's having that want. It's hard because after a long day, the last thing you want to do is come home and work for another 4 or 5 hours sitting on a computer. But again, think or swim, do it or don't win the job.
Exactly, and I think that's the point I found important, and I would sort of, I communicate to people who ask me about starting a business and stuff. It's like, you need to actually be able to work, right? And the incentive there is that your work, your input is directly linked to your output. It's your business. Whatever you put in, you're going to get out. And if you believe in, you believe in that principle, you put in everything. Whereas if you're working for someone else, it's not necessarily what you put in isn't linked to what you get out at most times. There's a lot of different dynamics there, a lot of different types of people. It's about putting in the right way, as opposed to just, slogging through the hours and getting stuff done. So I think that's a really important thing. So if people want to be good at work,
it's like doing your own business is the way to incentivize yourself and motivate yourself to actually become good at whatever it is that you're doing. Whereas working for some big corporate firm, it's like, I'll give my example of like people I went to school with in architecture. A lot of them have worked for like really big global architecture firms. If you ask them to sit down and, take a house through the process of a development application to consultant coordination, to drawing the plans, to tenders, to dealing with the builders, to managing construction, they couldn't do half of it because they haven't actually learned what the job is. There hasn't been incentive to learn what the job is. They've been incentivized in the way that corporation or whatever wants them to work. So that like, just to summarize this point, it's like, if you want to be good at whatever it is, the science of whatever job it is that you're doing, I think the best way to do that is to do it as a business for yourself.
It definitely is, but it's not just. I think you could learn a lot from working with others or for another company. You've also got to want to learn all the other aspects of it, right? So it's not okay, well, I'm going in, I clock in, do the work, and I'm going home. But it's like, okay, if you're finding that, okay, I'm getting what I need to do done quick or efficiently, or mastering what you're doing, and then moving on. Okay, the best example I can give is one that I could relate to. So I did carpentry. I never learned plumbing, electrical, roofing, none of that. But while on site, there might be a roofer working, and I'd be noticing, okay, he's doing it this way, okay. And then I'd sometimes ask questions, not to be on their backs, but it was more so just because for my own knowledge of why you're doing it this way. Like, why tweak it this little bit, whatever it was. So I took the time, even as an apprentice carpenter, to try and understand other aspects or other elements of building.
Yeah.
So when I got into building, or when I went out, no, a better example would be when I got into building before I went out on my own. When it came time to deal with the roofer, it's like going back to, oh, hey, I remember that conversation I had 2 years ago on why it should be done this way. So it's a combination of both. Yes, okay, going out on your own is definitely one of the quickest ways you'll learn, but learning from your current employer while you're still getting paid and you have job security is also a good way of learning too. So
yeah,
in the nicest way possible, it's using their money for you to learn more in your field. So it's not your money just yet. It's still their money and you're getting paid. So use it to your advantage.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that speaks to, the importance of finding a place to work that actually does allow you to learn. Because I think site is really good. Being on a job site, it's like a microcosm of the world. There's so many different types of people and different trades, different mentalities. You can go walk around and ask. And I think I found a lot of people were receptive to it. It's like, hey, mate, there's some guys doing some plumbing. You're like, what are you doing here? Why are you doing it like this? And not only do you get to learn, it also establishes a relationship with that person. Whereas I think in offices, sometimes it can be difficult to get access to the learning that you need because you're more under a microscope. But whatever. If you want to, you got to basically find the place that you can learn from. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Can I say one thing that I learned from as well? I mean, working for someone is a relationship, however you look at it. It's a working relationship, I guess. I learned as much from my horrible bosses than I did from my good bosses. So it's not just a matter of learning how to do things. It was a matter of learning how not to do things as well. So there were things, for example, there were things some of my bosses did back in the day, and you could clearly see it's not working. The business isn't efficient. The trades aren't happy. No one's happy. And it's like you analyze, okay, why is it the way it is? And so going out on my own, it was okay, yes, I learned a lot from this really good boss that I had back in the day, but I also learned a lot from the horrible bosses that I had as well, where
Yep.
it's like, you know what, if I ever do my own thing, that's not how I'm going to run the business. And try and build proper relationships, trustworthy relationships. So yeah, it's learning from the good and the bad. I think it's really important to learn from both. It's not necessarily, oh, this guy just taught me all the good stuff. It's pay attention to the bad as well, because it helps you when you do your own thing.
100%. Yeah, learn what not to do. I think it's a good way of basically mining every experience that you're getting. Well, I think hopefully you do find a good boss. I found that very difficult to find someone I could learn from directly. It sort of happened a bit later in my career, but I think that's really important advice. Which, speaking of, I just wanted to ask you, if there's any young people listening, like young people doing trades who are thinking of becoming builders, running their own business, or maybe some sort of site supervisor on a job site. What sort of advice do you think is important that you could give to these types of young people?
I should have saved my good and bad for this question. I think a lot of what I see is shortcuts. People, especially like as a builder, trying to get their builder's license in a shortcut way, whether you're paying someone X amount of dollars to get it out of, the back of a truck, essentially. But I think, take the time, learn all the elements, or learn as much of the elements of construction that you can, because the construction site is not a forgiving place. So everyone wants respect where they work and wants to be respected. So I guess with trades, and everyone knows construction sites aren't necessarily the friendliest sites, but it's not that it's not friendly, but could be a rough place to work. So I realized early on, again, as a carpenter, builders that don't know what they're talking about, I guess, are easily manipulated, whether the work quality, whether things are to code. Essentially, the quality is the key. So it's learn about all the different elements, and then that way, when you're on site talking to the trades, you're both understanding each other, and they're not talking to you like a child, because technically you're their superior in that case, where they're coming to you for guidance. So take your time, do the right steps, do the apprenticeship, finish your apprenticeship, go into TAFE again, do your 2 years of builders, and do things the right way. Build a lot of relationships along the way, because relationships are definitely key. They come in handy, and it's always, even if it's not someone that can get you work or give you work, you always have people to fall back on. If I'm short on a trade, hey, you give this person a call. Are you free, or do you know someone that's free? And it's just a network, building that network, even from a young age. Build your network. Don't wait till I've started my own business now, I'll start networking. Start from day one. I said earlier, quality is key. So for me, you could be the nicest person. You could be my dad. If your quality isn't good, I'm not interested. So take pride in the work you do. That is essential. Because at the end of the day, it shows in your work. Again, this isn't paperwork. It's not like a Excel spreadsheet. It's a physical thing in front of you, where you can look at, you can examine it, you can talk, oh, these little details aren't right, or this isn't what we asked for. So it's pay attention to quality, do your studies the right way, gain your experience the right way. And what else did I say? Relationships, I guess, is key.
Yeah.
Yeah. don't be scared to dive into it. It is scary. And I mean, it's not easy, but it's worth it. And I guess even going back sort of on one of the questions earlier, I always thought to myself, if I don't do it on my own, I'll always sit there wondering what it was like or what it would have been like if I did go out on my own. Now I know. But it's not to say that I'm never open to working for someone else. You never know what could happen. So I'm open to all things. But right now, yeah, it's just work hard, work honest. Yeah. Take pride in what, and it shows. And I think the customers can see it too. That is, I think that's one of the important things. Like, if you show that you truly care, the customers see it. And yeah, if it helps you in the future, where it's like, even just as recommendations, where I always talk about, okay, a lot of word of mouth on our end, people know what our quality is. If there's an issue, we fix it. If everything could be solved, I guarantee you, everything in construction could be solved. But if you're one step ahead before a problem occurs, it's also an advantage. So yeah, make communications, ask, mate, look for work. Don't be scared to ask questions, because that was a big part of me learning. That was a big part. Like I said, asking different trades why they do things, because it only benefits you in the end. It is a little bit selfish, but I mean, it doesn't hurt. It's not as long as you're not intrusive on, as if like, oh, why are you doing that? As if they're doing it wrong. Just let them know. Hey, look, I'm trying to learn. I don't know about this. First time watching it. Why do you do it the way they do it? And I still do it to my trades now, where I'm constantly asking the questions about them. And it's like, okay, why is this way? And why did you run it that way as opposed to going from this way? And yeah.
Because I think a really important point there is the word of mouth, and I think it's specific, not specific to just construction industry, but I think in construction industry it's a lot more valuable than in, let's say like digital marketing or something where it's a bit more saturated, because you have everyone you meet lives in a building, right? Every single person you've ever met. So in terms of talking about networking, your networking could be anyone at any time, at any point in your life that calls you 10 years later and says, hey mate, I'm thinking of building a house and I thought of you. So I think that's the first point, which I really agree with what you're saying. And the second thing is basically the doing a good job in construction. Someone might be paying $1 million to build their house or $500,000 to do a renovation. They're not necessarily going to go on Instagram and try to find a builder on Google. They might go to a friend. They might see a building that's happening on their street. They go to a family member. I think with construction, a lot of people want a more tangible type of evidence in order to decide on who to go with and spend such a big amount of money. And same in architecture too. So in that instance, word of mouth becomes, probably the most critical form, and that's what I've found in terms of getting business, because the clients that are coming in, they want you because someone you've worked for before has wanted you, and it creates a history between you before you've even started. Compared to a cold call or starting with a client, that's messaged you on a website. Not that they're invalid ways, but.
So my experience is a bit of both, whether it be, oh, we found you on Google, or word of mouth is our number one method of bringing work in. That's undoubtedly the best way I get a lot of the work that we do. And then again, likewise, you'd also be surprised. Impress them once, there'll be return customers. So that's another thing that's been key. I've had clients where the client that I mentioned when I first started, that was my very first job. I've then gone on to do 6 other jobs for him. 6 jobs in total for him on separate occasions. So it's key. I'm not saying Google doesn't work and Instagram doesn't work. I've gotten work from them too, but it's building those relationships with the current clients and the history to say, well, if you need a reference, here you go. Here's a whole contacts list of people that we've done work for. And you'd be surprised, have a good enough relationship. I've had a lot of clients say, if you ever need us as a reference, or you want people to come to our house to see the work that you've done, more than welcome. So it's, again, building that relationship where word of mouth becomes key, because you're right, nothing, and everyone knows it, nothing beats word of mouth till today. I mean, it could be 20 years from now, I think word of mouth will still be the best way to go about things. So especially in the industry we're in.
Yeah. Okay, man. Yeah, no, I think that's really, really wise. Thanks heaps for your time, and yeah, it's been really good as always chatting.
Anytime, mate. Anytime. Pleasure. Look forward. If you ever need me, you can always contact.